She abandoned me. I exposed her to her rich ex. My name's Jake, and I'm 16 years old, just a regular kid trying to get by, but let me tell you about the wild ride I've been on with my mom, who's 38 and, well, let's just say she's something else. My folks were never hitched, but they figured out a way to share me when I was growing up. I'd spend 2 weeks with my dad, then 2 with my mom, back and forth like a ping pong ball. Dad was a solid guy, never got serious with anyone after mom, at least not that I knew about. He was all about keeping things steady for me. Mom, though? She was a different story. Every few months, there'd be a new guy at her place, some dude she'd charm into sticking around for a bit. As a kid, that got old real quick. I ain't judging her choices, but it was tough on me, always adjusting to her latest fling. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed when Dad died in a freak accident. I was 13, and just like that, I was living with Mom full-time. No more splitting the month. At first, I thought we'd figure it out, but without Dad's child support checks, Mom started showing her true colors, and they weren't pretty. She'd snap at me, always going on about how much it cost to keep me fed and clothed, like I was some kind of burden she never signed up for. It stung, knowing she resented me that much. I tried to stay out of her way, keep my head down, but it's not like I could just vanish to make her happy. Living with her, I started noticing things I hadn't before. Mom was obsessed with looking young, way younger than her age. She'd doll herself up, lie about being in her late 20s, and reel in these rich, good-looking guys who were all about her appearance. Truth is, she was only with them for their wallets, and they were shallow enough to fall for it. I didn't like it one bit, but I kept my mouth shut. Long as there was food on the table and my school fees got paid, I wasn't gonna rock the boat. I even picked up a part-time job at a burger joint to cover some of my own stuff, so I wouldn't have to lean on her so much. Things were tense, but I managed until I messed up big time. A few weeks back, Mom's new boyfriend was over, some slick guy in his 20s. He asked what year I was in at school, and I said junior year without thinking. Big mistake. See, Mom had me trained to say I was a freshman, so her boyfriends wouldn't do the math and figure out she's closer to 40 than 30. It was a dumb slip, nothing worth freaking out over, but Mom lost it. After the guy left, she tore into me, screaming about how I ruined everything. Next thing I know, she's telling me to get out and never come back. Just like that, she kicked me to the curb, saying I was on my own. I was floored. What kind of mom does that over something so small? I grabbed my stuff and headed to my best friend Sarah's place. She's been my rock since we were in kindergarten, and her folks didn't hesitate to take me in that night. I thought it'd be temporary, but they ended up letting me stay for good. I owe them everything. Without them, I wouldn't have been able to keep going to school or have a roof over my head. They gave me more than a place to crash, they gave me hope when I was drowning in anger and hurt. I was torn up about Mom, no doubt, but I was also mad as hell. For years, I'd put up with her crap, especially after Dad died. Nothing I did was ever good enough, and now I saw it clear as day, she'd been looking for any excuse to ditch me. A teenage kid didn't fit her whole young and free vibe. She was scared I'd make her look old, mess up her game with these rich guys. I've got my dad's height and a baby face that throws people off, but that won't last forever, and she knew it. My little screw-up was just the out she needed. But here's the thing, she wasn't the only one with secrets. I knew something about her she'd kill to keep buried. Her last boyfriend, a guy named Tom, was different. He stuck around longer than most, maybe 5 or 6 months, and they seemed tight. He was young, loaded, heir to some big company, and crazy about her. Mom lied to him about her age too, but he didn't seem to care. He was decent to me, always asking how I was doing, and part of me wanted to warn him to run before Mom chewed him up and spit him out. They broke up out of nowhere, and I didn't know why until I got nosy. See, Mom and I shared a laptop, and sometimes I'd poke around in her messages when I was bored. I know it ain't right, but after everything, I didn't feel bad about it. She'd text her sister Lisa all the time, spilling every detail of her life like it was a soap opera. A while back, I found out why she and Tom split. She'd conned him out of $10,000, saying I'd been in some accident and needed surgery. Total lie. She spent the money on fancy clothes and makeup to keep up her act. Then she dodged him for weeks, claiming she was taking care of me while I healed. When he kept pushing to see me, she dumped him, saying he was too clingy. Reading that made my blood boil. Tom was a good guy, and she played him dirty, lying about me to scam him. I wanted to tell him right then, but I was still living with Mom, and I knew she'd flip if I crossed her. Now, though, she'd already tossed me out. I had nothing to lose. So, a couple days after she kicked me out, I decided to pay Tom a visit. I'd been to his place a couple times with Mom, so I knew where he lived. I took screenshots of her texts to Lisa, just in case I needed proof. When I showed up at his door, he looked confused but let me in. I didn't waste time, I laid it all out, showed him the messages, told him how she'd lied about the accident and pocketed his money. I wasn't sure what he'd do. He just nodded, real quiet, and said he'd think it over. I left feeling like maybe I'd wasted my breath, like Mom would wiggle out of it like always. Boy, was I wrong. A few days later, my neighbor called me, freaking out. Said Tom showed up at Mom's place with cops, and they hauled her off in handcuffs. I couldn't believe it. I figured he'd confront her, maybe yell a bit, but getting her arrested? That was next level. My neighbor said Mom wanted me to go to the police station and help her out, but I wasn't having it. I hung up the phone and didn't look back. After everything she'd done, I didn't feel one bit sorry for her. She made her bed, and now she could lie in it. A few days after that, I heard Mom was out on bail, probably scrambling to save herself. Her sister Lisa started blowing up my phone, calling me a rotten kid, saying Dad would be ashamed of me for turning on my own mom. That was rich, coming from someone who barely knew my dad. She probably met him twice, tops. Lisa was just trying to guilt me, and I think she knew I was the one who tipped off Tom, because she went on about how I betrayed Mom over something small. Small? Kicking your kid out for telling the truth ain't small. I didn't bother arguing with her. I figured they should focus on Mom's legal mess, because Tom wasn't messing around. Word was, he was taking her to court, and I hoped he'd stick it to her good. I know that sounds harsh, but after years of her treating me like dirt, I was done caring. Part of me felt free, like I could finally breathe. Sarah's parents were talking about adopting me, and that was the best news I'd heard in forever. Sarah's like my sister already, and the idea of being part of their family for real had me grinning ear to ear. I just hoped Mom wouldn't make a fuss when it came time to sign the papers giving up her rights. Turns out, Mom's legal troubles were heating up. One day, she showed up outside my school, looking mad as a hornet. I didn't want her making a scene in front of Sarah, so I agreed to talk. Big mistake. She started laying into me, calling me selfish, saying I owed her for all she'd done. Then she had the nerve to ask me to lie to Tom, tell him I faked those screenshots and made it all up. She even wanted me to pose with my arm in a sling to back up her story about the accident. I was stunned. After everything, kicking me out, treating me like garbage, she still thought I'd cover for her? I saw my chance, though. I told her I'd only help if she let Sarah's folks adopt me and sign away her rights. She didn't even blink, just said yes, like she couldn't wait to be rid of me. It hurt, knowing she was that eager to cut me loose, but deep down, I wasn't surprised. I'd known for years she didn't want me. Even when Dad was alive, she only kept me around for the child support checks. I spent so long trying to make her love me, but all she cared about was her looks and her boyfriends. It hit me hard as a kid, and it still does, but I'm done blaming myself. She never wanted to be a mom, plain and simple, and that's on her, not me. Sarah's family, though? They're the real deal. They've treated me like one of their own from day one, and I knew they'd be thrilled to make it official. Sarah's dad's a top-notch family lawyer, so I wasn't worried about the legal stuff, he'd make it happen smooth and quick. Living with Sarah's family was like stepping into a whole new world. I didn't know a home could feel so warm, so safe. My dad used to do his best to lift me up after I'd come back from Mom's, like he could tell I was hurting even when I tried to hide it. I kept going back to her, thinking one day she'd care, but every time, I'd come home a little more broken, and Dad would patch me back up with his words and his hugs. After he died, I didn't have that anymore, except for Sarah, who'd cheer me up at school or when we hung out on weekends. Now, being with her family, I felt like I'd found what Dad always wanted for me, a place where I was loved for real. They were already working on the adoption papers, and I was doing my part to keep Mom on board. I'd been texting her, acting like I'd talk to Tom and clear her name, but that was just to keep her from backing out. Once she signed those papers, I was done with her for good. Sarah thought my plan was smart, but I was stressing hard, worrying it might fall apart. My anxiety was through the roof, though I didn't let it show at school. Sarah kept pushing me to tell her parents so they could get me a therapist, but I made her swear to keep quiet until I was ready. I knew her folks wouldn't mind helping, but I felt bad asking for more when they were already doing so much. I was grateful, but guilt was eating at me, and all these feelings were piling up, making it hard to think straight. I just wanted it all to be over. Then, the big day came. Mom signed the adoption papers, and just like that, she wasn't my parent anymore. I was over the moon. She tried to play nice with Sarah's parents, but they weren't having it, keeping things short and cold until she got the hint and backed off. Before she left, she cornered me again, asking when I talked to Tom. I brushed her off, saying soon, not wanting to ruin the moment. I had no intention of helping her, and I was proud of how I'd played it. Yeah, it was sneaky, but I did what I had to do to break free. Mom didn't even seem to care about what she'd done. She was all smiles, happy to be rid of me for good. It hurt, but I knew it wasn't my fault. I could have been perfect, and she still wouldn't have wanted me. That's her loss, not mine. Now, I had a real family, Sarah's folks, who chose me, and Sarah, who's my sister in every way that matters. It's weird to think I've got just 2 years till I'm 18, but I'm gonna make every second with them count. We celebrated that night with cake and takeout from my favorite diner, and it felt like the start of something new, something good. I thought that was the end of it, but Mom wasn't done causing trouble. After the papers were signed, I blocked her on everything: phone, email, all of it. I wanted her gone from my life. For a couple days, things were quiet, but then I got this weird email from some random address, telling me to keep my promises. I knew it was her. I ignored it, but she started texting and calling from burner numbers, bugging me about Tom. I wanted to tell Sarah's parents, but I was scared they'd be mad about the deal I'd made with Mom, so I kept it to myself. Then, one day after school, there she was, waiting outside like a storm cloud. Sarah was with me, and I panicked, not wanting to deal with her. My chest got tight, and I could barely breathe. Next thing I know, I'm running back into school, locking myself in the janitor's closet. Sarah was banging on the door, but I was too freaked out. I must have passed out from the stress, because when I came to, Sarah's dad was carrying me out, with her mom and the principal standing there looking worried. They took me home, told me to rest, and I crashed hard, exhausted from it all. The next morning, we sat down, and they told me Sarah had spilled everything: my deal with Mom, the texts, all of it. I braced for them to be mad, but they weren't. They were just worried about me, and that was a relief. They said they didn't blame me for outsmarting Mom. Heck, they thought it was pretty clever, beating her at her own game. We decided to get a restraining order against her, because I was done with her drama. She's toxic, always has been, and I never want her near me again. They also started looking for a therapist to help me sort through everything: losing Dad, dealing with Mom, all the baggage I've been carrying. I'm grateful for them, more than I can say, and I know Dad would be happy I found a family like this. Looking back, I'm glad I stood up for myself, even if it meant playing dirty to get free. I've got a new life now, one where I'm wanted, and that's worth everything.